Like you, when I first heard of the name Timor-Leste, I had two thoughts. One, and two, but now I've been here a while, I can for sure say that this is one of the most fascinating and interesting countries that I've traveled to. It's both Southeast Asia and not Southeast Asia at the same time, and that's all down to its pretty fraught history. Being the gateway to Australia and in close proximity to other islands, the island of Timor was home to early Austronesian hunter-gatherers as far back as 35,000 years ago, and first received outsiders in the form of Asian migrants, who lovingly introduced agriculture to the locals.
And now veggies come straight to your front door. There you go. Thank you, Asian migrants.
Over time, the region was split into kingdoms, and like Game of Thrones, had strategic marriages based on exchanges of tradition. But like Game of Thrones, they kinda like to stab each other in the back. And it was just about to get a little bit more complicated. Enter the Europeans. Timor was split in half, where the Dutch would take the west and the Portuguese would take the east. Here they would rule for 400 years, spied a few bloody uprisings, introduced coffee to the country, and missionaries now hooked on caffeine converted who they could to Catholicism. Side note, because the Portuguese were more interested in trading, much like the Arabs were in East Africa, they tended to stick along the coastline, which meant that their traditional lifestyles and animalistic beliefs in the hinterland were pretty well preserved up until the 20th century. Fast forwarding to World War II, after almost 3 years of Japanese occupation and over 500,000 Timorese lives lost, Timor-Leste finally declared their independence from Portugal on the 28th of November 1975. But just 9 days later, they were invaded by neighbouring Indonesia, who provincialized the country for the next 24 years. And it was rough. Over 200,000 Timorese would perish due to the violence of the military, associated disease and famine. And I know occupation and war are totally different psychological mindsets from our day-to-day lives, but my mind boggles when I think of Indonesia as oppressors. They're some of the nicest people I've ever met, even when I stayed on the army base. So I have a friend here in Timor-Leste whose parents were part of the resistance when that was all happening. And she was saying that when she was younger and growing up, she would see her parents in the morning and they would have bruises and cuts and scrapes all over them, where they'd literally be fighting the Indonesian military. Another friend of mine was part of the guerrilla independence army when he was 15. It's just nuts.
In 1999, Indonesia held a referendum where 78.5% of the population voted for independence. But the Indonesian military, not liking this, pretty much burnt the place to the ground during the notorious Santa Cruz massacre, leaving 2/3 of the country displaced in refugee camps in West Timor and neighbouring islands, and the UN stepping in to form,
I'm going to get this so wrong, the United Nations The United Nations Transitional Administration in Timor-Leste. Is that right? Responsible for the administration of Timor-Leste until it held free elections in 2001 and then finally gained independence in 2002, where it became the world's youngest democracy. You'd be forgiven for not knowing much about the struggles of Timor-Leste. Just like Pol Pot's extermination of his own people, the rest of the world pretty much turned a blind eye. I also found out when researching Indonesia's occupation of Timor-Leste that Great Britain of the time, who told the rest of the world they were simply being a peace broker between the two nations, were actually supplying weapons to the Indonesian military. They were abstaining on UN resolutions penalizing Indonesia, and they were also giving them PR advice on how to repair their public image after committing atrocities in Timor. No PR is bad PR. Why did I do that in American accent? All joking aside, Timor-Leste suffered an untold amount of these atrocities. And on a century scale, I stumbled across one of these atrocities when I was working an event one day.
wow, so this was really super unexpected. So the lovely caretaker, Mana, has just let us come into this really special area. And so here, there's a cave. So there's a cave underneath the site of this building where during 1999, when the Indonesians invaded, with the dead Timorese people, they would throw them down into this cave, and you can actually smell, you can still smell like rotting, not rotting flesh, but you know that dead smell. If you've ever walked past like roadkill or something, that smell is super strong, and it's just down this cave. Do we know how many? ¿Cuántas personas?
A lot. Kids to elders.
Wow. They just throw them in the hole. Wow. Oh my god. Wow. Okay, so my workmate just told me something else about one of the guys here, right, that works here. So what did you say?
So they would literally shoot the people down into the cave, like, yeah.
Oh. And this guy you said was in like the tree or something?
Yeah, he was up the trees and he saw the people,
Like with the fighting between Indonesia and Timor-Leste, were your families involved or anything like this?
yeah.
Yeah. All involved.
My grandparents, they used to like they had to feed our militaries. So they had to go sneak inside to the forest and food there. One of the former presidents, Lolo, my grandparents had to go inside the forest and bring the food there, stuff like that.
At the time, me and my family ran and hid ourselves in Baliba when I was 1 year old.
So when all the fighting started?
Yeah, when it started, and I didn't hear anything, but my parents told me that lots of shooting, all that, and yeah.
Wow. And so it's Baliba, where were you hiding? In houses or?
We were hiding like in the river, the cave, the riverside, yeah.
The resistance in the cave?
Yeah, they were in the cave.
That's crazy. As you can see, that being the Indonesian embassy, all has been forgiven.
And with all the embassies taking up the primetime beachfront land along Dili's downtown beach, it seems like Timor-Leste is up for grabs economically. Head into the city and you'll find a blend of European-looking buildings with Portuguese street lanes, Indonesian-style rooms, and Chinese-owned everything else stores. It really is where East meets West, and it seems like Timor-Leste has an amazing relationship with the rest of the world, as they have student and workers contracts in places like Korea, the USA, Australia, and every time I meet someone here and tell them I'm from the UK, they seem to have an auntie or an uncle in some random town or village over there. In fact, if you look at my comments, people are saying the same things, like they're from Bristol or Hull. When coming to Timor-Leste, one thing you do have to keep in the back of your mind is that this is a pretty young country in terms from a tourist point of view, but it is developing fast.
Exploring Dili, you'll have no problems finding a delicious restaurant to eat at with a multitude of different cuisines, from Japanese to Italian to Mexican. Being that there are lots of foreign workers here and obtaining a business visa in Timor-Leste is pretty simple. Also within Dili, there are lots of hotels to choose from, spanning from 5-star luxury to more budget-like hostel, so there's something for everyone.
But one of the main downsides as an international traveller, and more so as a digital nomad, the Wi-Fi here and data from mobile carriers is shocking. And even if you're willing to pay the higher prices, it still pretty much sucks.
Right now, the Timor-Leste government has recently signed a deal with the Aussies and have just started laying broadband cables from Darwin,
which I still find mind-blowing. So hopefully in the next 18 months, they're going to have super fast broadband here, which I bet you is going to completely change the country. I mean, right now, there's no system of paying for something online with the Timorese bank. Is that shocking?
As it stands, there is a kind of top 10 places to visit around Timor-Leste, and you have places like Jaco Island in the east, Aotearoa Island just in front of Dili, and places like Vikeke where there are these stunning caves and mountains.
But from traveling across the country already, I know there are so many more places out there to explore, and it's going to be interesting to see again what happens to this place over the next 5 to 10 years when tourism really takes a hold. Like I said, it really is Asia's Rio de Janeiro. Well, that's easy. Just come and see it for yourself. Well then everyone, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, then give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to help support the channel further by me creating way more interesting and maybe more historical based content, then please support me on Patreon. The link is in the description. And of course, if you'd like to see even more content from myself, all you gotta do is click up here for the next video. Thank you so much guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye!